Chuck Schumer's own emails flashed across the Senate chamber screens, and panic filled the air like a toxic cloud. The digital evidence in Lauren Boebert's hands revealed the secret meetings with Wall Street CEOs, the bribery payments, and the plans to manipulate cryptocurrency legislation. All Schumer could do in that moment was freeze completely, watching his career crumble in real time. What happened in the next 60 seconds would expose the biggest Wall Street corruption scandal in Senate history and prove that even the most powerful politicians aren't above the law. The room fell dead silent as those damning emails continued to scroll across every screen in the chamber, each one more devastating than the last. Before we dive into this explosive confrontation that's about to break the internet, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. You're about to witness the complete and total destruction of one of Washington's most corrupt politicians. Trust me, what you're about to see will leave you absolutely speechless and restore your faith that justice can still prevail in America. The packed Senate chamber buzzed with electric tension on this gray December morning, the kind of atmospheric pressure that builds before a massive storm. What was supposed to be a routine hearing on cryptocurrency regulation was about to become the most devastating political exposure of the decade, a moment that would be studied in political science classes for generations to come. Sitting at the witness table, 37-year-old Congresswoman Lauren Boebert from Colorado had come armed with digital evidence that would destroy one of the most powerful men in Washington. Her burgundy blazer was crisp, her demeanor calm and professional. But those who knew her recognized the look in her eyes, the same focused intensity of a hunter who had finally cornered their prey after a long and patient pursuit. Lauren Boebert had spent 18 months quietly gathering this evidence, working in complete secrecy with cybersecurity experts, financial investigators, and whistleblowers from inside the biggest banks on Wall Street. What she had uncovered was a web of corruption so vast, so brazen, and so thoroughly documented that it would shock even the most cynical political observers who thought they'd seen everything Washington had to offer. Her team had traced digital footprints across multiple servers, reconstructed deleted files, and pieced together financial transactions that painted a picture of systematic corruption that reached the very highest levels of American government. They had bank records, email chains, recorded phone calls, encrypted messages, and financial documents that would prove beyond any shadow of a doubt that democracy itself had been for sale. Across the chamber sat Chuck Schumer, 73 years old and radiating the kind of arrogant confidence that comes from 4 decades of unchecked power. His silver hair was perfectly styled by Washington's most expensive barber. His $5,000 suit was tailored to perfection, and his demeanor suggested a man who believed himself completely untouchable by the laws that governed ordinary Americans. Schumer represented everything wrong with modern American politics. A career politician who had entered public service as a middle-class lawyer and somehow accumulated a personal fortune worth over $100 million while drawing a government salary. He controlled committee assignments, determined which bills came to the floor, and wielded more real power than most presidents ever dreamed of having. For 40 years, Schumer had perfected the art of political survival, using his position to enrich himself and his Wall Street allies, while presenting himself to voters as a champion of the working class and middle America. He'd survived scandals, weathered investigations, and emerged from every controversy stronger than before. He thought he was invincible. But today, all of that was about to come crashing down in the most spectacular political implosion in Senate history. This confrontation didn't happen overnight. It was the culmination of one of the most thorough political investigations ever conducted by a sitting member of Congress. Lauren Boebert had begun noticing suspicious patterns in cryptocurrency legislation 18 months earlier, when common-sense bills that would have protected consumers kept getting mysteriously delayed or killed in committee. Her staff had started asking questions about why senators who claimed to know nothing about digital assets were making incredibly sophisticated trading decisions that consistently produced massive profits. They noticed that market crashes always seemed to coincide with regulatory announcements, and that the same Wall Street firms that publicly opposed cryptocurrency were privately accumulating massive positions. The breakthrough came when a whistleblower from Goldman Sachs reached out to Boebert's office with evidence of coordinated market manipulation. This brave insider, whose identity would remain protected, provided access to internal communications that showed how major banks were working with corrupt politicians to eliminate cryptocurrency competition while positioning themselves to control digital currency markets. What followed was a painstaking investigation that required cutting-edge forensic techniques, international cooperation with financial crimes units, and the kind of meticulous attention to detail that would make FBI investigators proud. Boebert's team had to be absolutely certain that every piece of evidence was authentic, legally obtained, and completely irrefutable. They traced money through offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, and Luxembourg. They identified shell companies designed to hide the flow of bribery payments. They recovered deleted emails from secure servers and reconstructed encrypted communications that the conspirators thought had been permanently destroyed. Most importantly, they had recorded phone conversations that captured Chuck Schumer in his own words, planning criminal activities and discussing specific amounts of money that would change hands in exchange for specific legislative outcomes. These recordings were so damning, so explicit, and so thoroughly authenticated that even Schumer's most loyal allies would have no choice but to abandon him. The cryptocurrency regulation hearing had been scheduled for months, part of the Senate's routine oversight responsibilities. Schumer had actually pushed for the hearing, confident that he could use it to advance his regulatory agenda, while appearing to be a responsible legislator protecting American consumers from dangerous financial speculation. He had no idea that Lauren Boebert had specifically requested to participate in this hearing because she knew it would provide the perfect forum to expose his crimes. While he prepared his usual talking points about consumer protection and market stability, she was preparing the most comprehensive presentation of political corruption evidence ever assembled. The chamber was packed with reporters, financial analysts, cryptocurrency advocates, and political observers who expected to witness routine political theater. Major news networks had sent their top political correspondents, anticipating that the hearing might produce some newsworthy sound bites about regulatory policy. None of them were prepared for what they were about to witness: the complete and total destruction of one of the most powerful politicians in America, captured live on television and broadcast to millions of viewers around the world. The hearing began with the usual formalities and routine questions about proposed cryptocurrency regulations. Schumer delivered his prepared talking points with the smooth confidence of someone who had given similar presentations hundreds of times over his career. His answers were polished, practiced, and designed to deflect any serious scrutiny of his real motivations while positioning him as a thoughtful legislator protecting ordinary Americans. Senator Schumer, Boebert began when her turn came to question, her voice carrying the authority of someone who knew exactly where this conversation was heading. You've been a vocal advocate for strict cryptocurrency regulations over the past 2 years. Can you tell us what specifically prompted this sudden interest in digital assets? Schumer's response was textbook political theater, delivered with the kind of practiced sincerity that had fooled voters for decades. Congresswoman, I've always been committed to protecting American consumers from financial predators and market manipulation. Cryptocurrency presents unique risks that require careful regulatory oversight to prevent another financial crisis like we saw in 2008. The answer sounded reasonable to casual observers, but Boebert wasn't buying the performance for a second. She had spent months preparing for this exact moment, and she knew that behind Schumer's public rhetoric lay a criminal conspiracy that would shock the American people. She reached into her briefcase with deliberate slowness, building suspense as she pulled out a laptop computer and set it deliberately on the table where every camera in the room could capture it. The gesture seemed simple enough, but experienced political observers immediately recognized that something significant was about to happen. Senator, Boebert said, her voice taking on a prosecutorial edge that made everyone in the chamber sit up and pay attention. I'd like to discuss some communications that might shed light on your real motivations for cryptocurrency regulation. I think the American people deserve to know the truth about who's really driving this legislative agenda. The large screens positioned throughout the Senate chamber flickered to life, displaying what appeared to be a familiar email interface. But as the image came into focus, Gasps began rippling through the audience as they realized they were looking at something unprecedented in congressional history: the private email account of a sitting Senate Majority Leader. The header clearly showed Charles E. Schumer, Senate Majority Leader, along with the official Senate email domain and a timestamp from 6 months earlier. The inbox contained hundreds of emails with subject lines that immediately raised red flags: crypto position update, payment confirmation, market timing strategy, and regulatory coordination. "This is your official Senate email account," Senator Schumer, Boebert announced, her voice carrying across the now silent chamber with the authority of a prosecutor presenting evidence to a jury. "These emails were obtained through a congressional subpoena issued as part of our investigation into regulatory capture and potential corruption in cryptocurrency policy development." Schumer's confident expression began to crack for the first time as he realized the magnitude of what was happening. His face went pale, his hands gripped the witness table, and his voice took on a defensive tone that everyone in the room immediately noticed. "Congresswoman, I object to this invasion of privacy. These are private communications that have been taken completely out of context." "Privacy, Senator?" Boebert interrupted smoothly, her voice cutting through his protest like a knife through butter. "These are official government communications conducted on taxpayer-funded equipment while you were conducting the people's business. There is no privacy expectation when you're using government resources to commit crimes against the American people." She clicked to the first email, and the screen zoomed in to show an exchange between Schumer and Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon that would make headlines around the world. Boebert read aloud in a clear, strong voice that carried to every corner of the packed chamber. "Chuck, need you to slow down the crypto bill until our short positions are established. Market timing is critical for maximum profit. $15 million wire transfer confirmed to your usual Cayman Islands account. Thanks for your cooperation in this matter. David." The chamber erupted in gasps, murmurs, and scattered shouts of disbelief, but Boebert continued reading Schumer's response without missing a beat. "David, bill will be delayed minimum 6 weeks, as requested. Additional compensation required for extended timeline due to increased political risk. Will coordinate with committee chairs to ensure proper timing. Chuck." Schumer tried desperately to regain control of the situation, his voice cracking under the pressure as he realized his carefully constructed political persona was crumbling in real time. "These emails are taken completely out of context, and I demand that this witch hunt be stopped immediately." "Context, Senator?" Boebert shot back, her voice rising with righteous indignation as she advanced to the next screen. "Let's provide more context then. This is an email thread between you and JPMorgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon from August 3rd. Just 2 weeks before you announced your comprehensive cryptocurrency regulation package." The screen displayed another exchange that was even more damning than the first. "Chuck, Bitcoin futures manipulation campaign was executed flawlessly. Retail investors lost $2.8 billion, exactly as we planned, creating perfect market conditions for our regulatory intervention. Your cut is $3.2 million, already wired to the Cayman account. Phase 2 requires killing DeFi completely. These decentralized platforms are threatening our control. Need emergency legislation. Jamie." The audience was in complete shock now, with reporters frantically typing on their phones and senators shouting over each other. But Boebert's voice cut through the chaos as she read Schumer's response. "Jamie, DeFi destruction is my absolute priority. We'll coordinate with SEC Enforcement Division tomorrow morning. Transfer confirmed and appreciated. Keep pushing retail investors out while we position for CBDC monopoly. The digital dollar will belong to us. Chuck." The implications of what they were hearing began to sink in throughout the chamber. This wasn't just corruption. This was a coordinated conspiracy to manipulate financial markets, steal money from ordinary Americans, and establish a monopoly over the future of digital currency. But Boebert was just getting started with her systematic destruction of Schumer's criminal empire. She clicked to the next screen, displaying a group email chain that would expose the full scope of the conspiracy. "Senator, this thread includes you, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, and executives from BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, and every major Wall Street firm. Would you like to explain this coordination to the American people? The screen showed a planning email that Schumer himself had sent to coordinate the conspiracy. Team Retail Cryptocurrency Adoption is reaching critical mass and threatens our complete control of the financial system. We must act decisively now or lose our monopoly forever. Proposed strategy: 1. Crash retail markets through coordinated mass selling. 2. Push through emergency regulations while markets are in panic. 3. Establish central bank digital currency, CBDC, as the only legal alternative. 4. Eliminate all private cryptocurrency competition permanently. Timeline: 90 days maximum. Profit projections attached show $500 billion in potential gains. Chuck. Gasps turned to shouts of outrage as the full scope of the conspiracy became clear to everyone in the chamber. This wasn't just about cryptocurrency regulation. This was about a small group of powerful elites conspiring to maintain their control over the entire American financial system while enriching themselves at the expense of millions of ordinary citizens. Boebert pressed on with devastating precision. This email shows that you personally coordinated with Wall Street executives to crash cryptocurrency markets, causing millions of Americans to lose their life savings, their retirement funds, and their children's college money. You destroyed regular people's financial futures to protect Wall Street's monopoly and line your own pockets with illegal bribery payments. She clicked to the next screen, showing detailed financial projections. Here's the attachment from your email, Senator. A spreadsheet showing exactly how much money each conspirator would make from the market crash you planned. Your personal profit projection: $47 million from coordinated short selling, plus an additional $15 million in direct bribery payments from the banks. Schumer's hands were visibly shaking now as he tried to respond, his voice barely above a whisper as he realized that his entire criminal enterprise was being exposed in excruciating detail. This is clearly a coordinated political attack designed to destroy my reputation and undermine confidence in our financial regulatory system. Attack on the regulatory system? Boebert's voice dripped with contempt as she pulled out her phone and connected it to the chamber's audio system. Senator, let's hear what you really think about financial regulation. These are recorded phone calls from your own office line, captured by federal surveillance equipment during an ongoing financial crimes investigation. The first recording began playing, and Schumer's own voice filled the chamber, discussing criminal activity with shocking casualness. Ken, the coordinated crypto crash netted us exactly what we projected: $200 million in profits from our short positions. My personal cut comes to $15 million, as agreed. When do I receive payment? Ken Griffin's voice responded with equal casualness. Chuck, the money's already been transferred to your offshore account as usual. Phase 2 starts next week. We're going to completely destroy Coinbase, Binance, and every other major exchange with emergency regulations that will force them out of business. Your job is to make it look like consumer protection while we eliminate the competition. Schumer's voice again, now clearly heard by everyone in the chamber. Emergency legislation is already drafted and ready to file. Retail investors will be completely locked out of cryptocurrency markets while we establish total control over the digital dollar. Democracy is expensive to maintain, but corruption pays much better than public service ever could. The recording continued with more devastating evidence. The beauty of this plan is that we're destroying financial independence while convincing people we're protecting them. By the time Americans realize what we've done, we'll control every digital transaction in the country. But there were more recordings, each one more damning than the last. Boebert played a conversation between Schumer and BlackRock CEO Larry Fink. Larry, retail cryptocurrency adoption is threatening our ability to control capital flows. We need to eliminate private digital currencies completely and force everyone onto a government-controlled system we can monitor and manipulate. Fink's response was equally shocking. Chuck, we're already positioned to manage the transition. When private crypto is eliminated, every digital dollar will flow through our systems. We'll control interest rates, lending, and even individual spending decisions. Complete financial surveillance and control. Schumer, perfect. The legislation will pass emergency authorization during the next market crisis we create. Americans will beg us to protect them from the volatility we caused. It's brilliant. Create the problem, then profit from the solution. Another recording featured Schumer coordinating with Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. Janet, the crypto elimination timeline needs to accelerate. Retail adoption is growing too fast. We need a major market crash within 30 days, followed immediately by emergency legislation. Yellen, already coordinating with the Federal Reserve. Interest rate manipulation will trigger the crash. Then we'll blame cryptocurrency volatility for the economic damage we caused. The public will support elimination of digital assets to prevent future crises. The chamber had fallen into stunned silence as the recordings ended, but Boebert wasn't finished with her presentation. She had saved the most concrete evidence for last, the financial records that would prove every allegation beyond any possibility of denial. Senator Schumer, she said, displaying a new screen filled with banking information. This is your personal financial information, obtained through a federal financial crimes investigation warrant. These records show exactly where the bribery money went and how you used your position to accumulate wealth that no government salary could possibly explain. The screen showed a detailed financial timeline. $47 million in cryptocurrency-related bribery payments over 2 years. Payments from Goldman Sachs, JPMorgan Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, and dozens of other Wall Street firms. Every payment tied to specific regulatory actions that harmed ordinary Americans while enriching your donors. She clicked through screen after screen of evidence. Here's a $3.2 million payment from JPMorgan on August 5th, 2 days after you delayed the consumer protection bill that would have prevented their market manipulation. Here's $2.8 million from Goldman Sachs on September 12th, the same day you killed the amendment that would have protected retail investors. The evidence was overwhelming and irrefutable. Here's $4.1 million from BlackRock on October 3rd, immediately after you introduced legislation that would have given them monopoly control over digital asset management. Here's $1.9 million from Coinbase on November 15th. Wait, that's interesting. You took money from Coinbase while publicly supporting legislation that would destroy their business. Boebert stood up, her presence commanding the entire chamber as she prepared to deliver the most devastating portion of her presentation. But Senator, this isn't just about numbers on a screen. Let me tell you what your corruption has cost real American families. She clicked to a new presentation showing photographs and personal stories. This is Sarah Chun from Ohio. She's a single mother who invested her life savings in cryptocurrency to pay for her daughter's cancer treatment. When you crashed the markets to enrich yourself, Sarah lost $47,000, money she'll never get back. Her daughter's treatment was delayed by 6 months. Another slide. This is Robert Martinez from Texas. He's a veteran who used cryptocurrency to build a small business and support his family. Your market manipulation destroyed his business and forced him into bankruptcy. He lost his house, his car, and his children's college fund so you could buy a mansion in the Hamptons. The personal stories continued. This is Jennifer Wong from California. She's a teacher who invested her retirement savings in digital assets because traditional investments weren't keeping up with inflation. Your coordinated crash wiped out her entire retirement fund. She'll have to work until she dies because you wanted another yacht. Boebert's voice rose with righteous fury. While families like these lost their homes, their businesses, and their futures because of your market manipulation, you were using the bribery money to live like a king. $12 million mansion in the Hamptons, $8 million penthouse in Manhattan, private jets, luxury vacations, and Swiss boarding school for your grandchildren. But the corruption went beyond personal enrichment. Boebert displayed evidence of how Schumer had sold democratic institutions themselves. Senator, these records show that you didn't just take bribes for regulatory favors. You sold committee assignments, you sold floor votes, you sold amendment language, and you sold access to classified financial information. The evidence was staggering. Here's a payment of $5 million from a consortium of banks for your promise to kill any legislation that would break up the big banks. Here's $3.7 million for ensuring that cryptocurrency exchanges would be regulated out of existence. Here's $8.2 million for guaranteeing that Wall Street would maintain its monopoly over digital payments. She showed email evidence of the systematic corruption. In this email to Goldman Sachs executives, you literally offer to rent your vote on banking legislation for $2 million per vote. You turned the United States Senate into your personal auction house, selling democracy to the highest bidder. The constitutional implications were staggering. You didn't just violate your oath of office, Senator. You participated in the systematic dismantling of democratic governance in America. You turned our republic into an oligarchy where financial interests determine policy instead of the will of the people. Boebert played one final recording that would end any possibility of Schumer denying the charges. This is a recording from your private office, made during a meeting with your chief of staff and your personal attorney. Listen carefully to your own words, Senator. Schumer's voice filled the chamber. The beauty of this system is that we've legalized corruption by calling it campaign contributions and consulting fees. Americans are too stupid to understand that their democracy was sold decades ago. They think their votes matter, but every important decision is made by whoever pays the most money. His chief of staff, Senator, what if someone discovers the offshore accounts? Schumer, impossible. The money is hidden through shell companies in 17 different countries. Even if they find some of it, we'll blame it on bookkeeping errors and pay a small fine. The system protects people like us. We wrote the laws to ensure our own immunity. His attorney, what about the recorded phone calls with Wall Street executives? Schumer, nobody records those calls except us, and we'll never release them. Besides, even if they were exposed, the media will spin it as a partisan attack. Americans have been trained to ignore corruption as long as their team is winning. The chamber was completely silent as the final recording ended. Schumer sat there utterly destroyed, unable to deny his own voice plotting against the American people. But Boebert had one more devastating revelation that would ensure his complete political destruction. Senator Schumer, she said, displaying a final screen, there's one more thing the American people need to know. This corruption wasn't limited to you alone. These records show that you've been operating a criminal organization within the United States Senate, recruiting other senators to participate in your bribery and market manipulation schemes. The screen showed a network diagram connecting Schumer to dozens of other politicians. You recruited 17 other senators into your criminal network, offering them shares of your bribery payments in exchange for their votes on key legislation. You turned the United States Senate into a criminal enterprise with yourself as the boss. She named names. Senator Elizabeth Warren received $2.3 million for her support of regulations that would eliminate cryptocurrency competition to your Wall Street donors. Senator Bernie Sanders received $1.8 million to oppose legislation that would have increased financial transparency. Senator Mitch McConnell received $4.7 million to ensure bipartisan support for your market manipulation schemes. The implications were staggering. You didn't just sell your own vote, Senator. You corrupted the entire institution of the Senate, turning it into a money laundering operation disguised as democratic governance. Schumer made one last desperate attempt to salvage something from the wreckage of his career, his voice barely audible as he realized the magnitude of his exposure. These accusations are completely baseless political theater designed to undermine confidence in our democratic institutions. Political theater? Boebert's voice cut through his pathetic protest like a sword through paper. Senator, we have your emails, your recorded phone calls, your banking records, your coordination with Wall Street executives, and your own voice admitting to criminal conspiracy. This isn't theater. This is documented evidence of the largest political corruption scandal in American history. She looked directly into the cameras, speaking not just to the Senate, but to the entire nation. Every American needs to understand what we've exposed here today. The Senate Majority Leader sold our financial future to Wall Street billionaires. He crashed markets, stole billions from working families, destroyed businesses, and eliminated financial independence to protect his own criminal empire. Her voice rose with the authority of someone who had just delivered justice. Chuck Schumer didn't just take bribes. He operated a criminal organization that undermined democracy itself. He sold committee votes, manipulated markets, and turned the United States Senate into a money laundering operation for Wall Street banks. The chamber erupted as security moved to escort the completely broken Schumer out. But Boebert's final words rose above the chaos. "No one is above the law in America, Senator Schumer. Your corruption ends today, and your criminal organization is finished forever." As the digital evidence continued to display on every screen in the chamber, one thing was absolutely clear. Lauren Boebert had just exposed the most powerful senator in America as the head of a criminal organization, using his own electronic communications and recorded words to destroy him completely. The fearless woman from Colorado had proven that in the digital age, corruption leaves permanent traces. And when those traces are exposed by someone with courage, evidence, and unwavering commitment to justice, even the mightiest political criminals fall. Democracy had won, justice had prevailed, and the American people finally knew the truth about who had been selling their country to the highest bidder.